On tonight's episode of Canning with Leah, we're freezing again instead of canning. And tonight we're doing celery. And I'd like to introduce a couple of my assistants here. So I've got Lila and Brennan, my kids. They're going to be helping for a little while until it's their bedtime.
Hi. Hi.
So you might be wondering why I'm doing celery. It's kind of a random thing to freeze. Well, first of all, I grew it in my garden this year and it provided me with a lot of celery, more than what I can use at one time. Secondly, if you purchase celery at the grocery store, you're likely to buy a big bundle of it and only use a couple of the stalks or ribs, and then the rest of it just sits in your crisper drawer until it rots. Well, you can freeze that celery for later use. And with the grocery prices being as high as they are these days, it's nice to reduce that waste and use as much as you can. So to begin, I already cleaned the stalks of celery. So we basically need to go ahead and start by getting them cut up into pieces. So I'll go ahead and give some to Lila over here. And I'll have some over here. Of course, most of you probably know how to cut celery. We tend to cut off the top part and then the thicker part at the bottom. And then in the middle parts, we will go ahead and just slice them, I would say, in 1/2 inch chunks. And if you have it all together, it's really quick to do multiple stalks at one time.
It smells pretty interesting.
So now that I have the celery all cleaned and chopped up, we're going to blanch them in boiling water. So my son explained to me that I should probably provide some descriptions for words such as blanching. So I don't really have a scientific term to provide you with. However, to my knowledge, blanching is submerging either vegetables or fruits in boiling water. What I want to share too is that with frozen celery, of course, when you take it out of the freezer, it's not going to be as crisp as if you were to have fresh celery. So my recommendation would be to just use it for soups or maybe putting it in casseroles, just something where you're not going to be needing fresh celery, of course. So now that the 3 minutes of blanching has passed, I've poured the celery pot into the strainer, of course, and cooled it down right away with cold water and ice. Now it's really important that you get the celery nice and dry before you put it in the freezer. So what I would recommend is leave it in the celery or in the strainer, and using paper towel, just try to pat it as dry as you can possibly get it, removing any excess water. Okay, now that I have my celery dry, now that I have the celery all dry, then I'll pour it out onto a cookie sheet that's been lined with parchment paper to prepare it for the freezer. You want to make sure that you lay it out nice and flat, so that for the most part they're not overlapping. Because tomorrow when I take it out of the freezer, I want to be able to have them be individual pieces of celery. Just like that. So now that the celery has sat in the freezer overnight, it's ready to just basically come out, and you break them apart and make sure that they're a bunch of little pieces. And then you go ahead and just put them in the Ziploc bag and then put that in the freezer, and it's ready for future use. Now make sure to like this video and subscribe to Canning with Leah. See you next time.
Goodbye.